All right, Ty, I don't have my whistle today. We're really rusty. So like we're going off the script. I'm just gonna say timeout.
All right, man, let's do it.
All right, Faheem, you ready?
I am ready.
All right, let's have some fun. Timeout, Tyler. Who are we taking a timeout with today?
Kevin, good to see you again, brother. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, we are taking a timeout with Faheem Masood, the president and CEO of ESL Federal Credit Union. We all know the little blue card. I had one, the baby blue. Faheem, welcome to the show. And the first thing I wanted to ask you was, if you could have dinner with 4 people at your table, dead or alive, who would it be?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. 4 people. I guess, it's interesting. We just had a leadership meeting yesterday, and I mentioned that. One of them you see behind me, which is Muhammad Ali in a poster. I think there's an individual by the name of Sir Thomas More, who I'm not a huge literature person, but one literature book I read when I was a kid, it's woven fact with fiction. He was someone who challenged Henry VIII, and I learned from him at a very young age about what integrity means. And then, I haven't really thought of it, but on the spur of the moment, I'd say my parents. It would have good to show them the family that has evolved, that was born from them.
Wow. And being a new father myself, I got to ask you, what's the best thing about being where you are today? What do you wish that your parents got to see or know?
So I actually am an immigrant here. I came to college in 1981, met my wife at college, and made the decision that we could have a better life in America. She's American, and for her to move to Pakistan would be a bit challenging. So I was married at 21. We made the decision to live here and start a family here. The unfortunate side of that is I left all my family in Pakistan, and I raised 2 wonderful daughters. We raised 2 wonderful daughters and had many milestone events throughout our lives, and my parents were not able to participate in any of them. Fortunately, internet helped us a lot since the 90s. At least we could do more things like video chats and all. Occasionally saw them over the last 40 years, but they knew me as an 18, 19-year-old, and probably, and quite factually, could not have projected this is the life I would have made. And for good reason, they would have projected that. So
yeah, well, you stayed for that American dream, and then you became the president and CEO of ESL, one of the most prominent, well-known, and well-established organizations within the Rochester community because of all the great work that you do in our community. And I kind of wanted to I guess jump right into it if we could, is talk about like your past, right? You literally worked your way up from finance, from some financial positions to get into where you are today, taking your history from your background and coming from Pakistan originally, and to then that experience that you grew within kind of the banking institutions. What were some of the lessons that you learned that are making you such a well-known and respected and trusted leader at ESL?
Well, thank you for the flattering comments. You know what? I have become more conscious of how my journey has come about and how my history influenced it. It's not been sort of like I deliberately did things, but I understand better now why they happened. I mentioned I'm an immigrant. I basically left a whole world behind when I decided to settle in America after school with my wife. It was so important to me to build the connections with the place I lived in, with people, because all I knew didn't have that anymore around me. I had a lot of family connections, and growing up in Pakistan, used to big family gatherings, and friends, and I wanted to be part of where I lived and where I worked, and certainly very committed to family. Since I didn't have any more family, that was always at my center, my daughters and my wife. I think that heavily influenced how I am towards how I participate as a CEO. In that, to me, my community matters. My community includes the outside our walls, but my community of people I work with, they matter to me. I want to be part of something, not by myself.
Mhm.
So this desire to build these relationships and be part of something rather than being by myself really has driven a lot of my behaviors. And I have to say, I've become more conscious of that as these kind of questions have been posed to me. I start understanding who I am, what I'm about, and certainly that's influenced me. I will say also there's, when you grow up in the third world, many wonderful experiences, amazing people. But unfortunately, you see things that, for me at least, really get internalized, and how people are treated, how they can be treated, how the haves and have-nots exist. I was among the fortunate. I didn't come from a wealthy family, but I certainly did not come from anywhere near not even close to any poverty. But you see a lot of it.
Mhm.
And to know there can be those disparities, and that you just have to sometimes be lucky not to fall into those situations, I think is very much part of my consciousness. And I do bring that with myself to my work, and all of that to my work, and what drives me.
Dude, awesome, Faheem. And I wanted to ask you, what strength of the Pakistan culture do you bring to America?
I think there's a lot of similarities between Pakistan and here. I mean, you notice a lot of differences, but I've been here for 40 years. I am much more a product of this environment than I am of where I grew up. But there are some things that I think very much rhyme for me about where Pakistan is and here. Generally, people are very family oriented over here. A family is important, and I kind of see that very similar. A community in a different way is important. So there's similarities that I see. Similarities about no matter where you are, what your social class is. People are just trying to make better lives for their next generation. It is, in many respects, the human existence is quite similar. It just is at a different stage of economic evolution, perhaps. I think probably if I had grown up in America, some things would have been similar for me, right? I mean, dependent on the situation you grew up in. If there was a lot of family around you, you would be influenced by those connections. I have aunts, uncles who are such a big part of who I am. My parents, brothers, sisters, but we had a large family, very large family. Definition of family in Pakistan is different. Your second or third cousin still family. So here it's a bit different. I think that connection with others, I think is very important in America too. Much as we might be individuals, I appreciate that about being here. I am allowed to be much more of an individual than I'd say I would have been over there. That's a difference I see. Yeah. But I see a lot of similarities.
It's really cool to draw those comparisons and just the reflection. And I think it's, you keep alluding to the word of consciousness and raising your awareness, and just an elevated state of kind of awareness of why I make certain decisions or why I make those choices. And I think that's a lot of people did a lot of that during the pandemic. Some figured out who they were, and some continued to pretend to be something else. But one of the things that you said earlier, you talked about building connections and something that you're very familiar with in this digital world. I mean, we took a huge pause during the pandemic, but connections that you have been able to build over 40 years with your family halfway across the world probably taught you some of the skills of how you were able to build those same social fabric and the same social connections internally at ESL when you guys did have to hit the pause button. What did you learn, or what have you learned over the years of digital connection? And are there any tips that you were kind of like, oh, this is why I do this during the pandemic, and this is my strength, I just never knew it existed? Did you have any aha moments then where you draw some of the comparisons of your personal life into now your professional world?
So I think the word connections, the digital world does create some separation between us when we're not physically together. I found it necessary to find ways to compensate for that random, casual connection you make in the hallways, you make after meetings, that just continues conversations. It doesn't happen in the digital world the same way. You have scheduled meetings. Meetings start and end. So you have to create space to have meetings without necessarily a purpose, an agenda. You have to create conversation. So I found myself just with people who my management team. We have 20 people on our management team. I have 7 direct reports. Them I talk to every week. But the other members I used to talk to when we were in the physical world, just casual conversation, will drift into business or not. I had to very intentionally create space in the digital world to make sure I had made time to have a scheduled video call, to have a casual conversation. It wasn't about, hey, should we be working on something? It was to understand where each of us was. And it was a trying time. For many reasons. One, the facts of the pandemic, and that we had to support. That's our job, to support our members, our community, and our employees, and each other. But we all individually were going through things and trying to understand what we were going through. So I think in the digital world, it's very easy to fall into scheduled. They're very effective. You can have very effective scheduled meeting. It's those casual connections you make. You have to very intentionally create space for that. And it might have taken me about 3 or 4 months that I said something's missing. And we started that process to create that lunchtime calls or just having one-on-one video calls. Again, not to talk business. Hey, how are you? Yeah. What's going on? What's going on with the kids? It's just that casual conversation that creates connections that clearly, unless you take deliberate action, is missing in the digital world. Yeah. The digital world allows for it, but you can't just transport meeting environment and say you're done. Yeah. And that's what I think when we're talking about well-being, we're looking at well-being holistically today and deeper levels. And I think social well-being is a big piece to the puzzle of wellness within an organization. So I loved what you had to say there. Tyler, I know we only got you on limited time today. We got you on a pitch count. So I want to make sure you get to ask all the questions that you want of this phenom leader here in Rochester.
Absolutely. And Faheem, I love what you just said. It happened to me yesterday. My boss was like, we got on a call and he goes, what are your hobbies? And it threw me off. I was like, aren't we here for, don't you want to know some things about business? So how's it going? He's like, no, and it was just, it lightened up my chest, and I realized I haven't had a conversation over Zoom besides business and work and KPIs and what you call it. So I love how you touched on that, Faheem. And before I get off, I'm going to have you do your best Muhammad Ali impression, by the way. So get ready. But so Faheem, I was going to ask you, when did you know in life, and I always ask folks this, did you know that you were going to be a CEO of an organization or a business? When was it when you were like, you know what, I'm an immigrant, so what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a CEO. And what advice would you have specifically to immigrants that have a vision of being a CEO one day?
So, I mean, first of all, I emphasize I have never felt like an immigrant as a career unfolds. So for me, it wasn't like I was 21 coming out of college and said, wow, I want to be CEO. It was a discovery along the way about I have something to offer. I think I can have impact in a certain way by assuming certain roles. I would say probably 15 years into my career, I started thinking that, boy, I have some things that I can connect for the business and make contributions that would help us achieve what we were trying to achieve, help our mission further. So it wasn't so much about like having an initial thought about it, but over time, the realization that I have something to offer. But then the question of how do I activate that? Yeah. What experiences do I need? What investment do I need to make in myself? What conversations do I have to have in order to express my interest in that? So it was at some point a recognition, I think I can grow into this. I would say it was probably in my mid-30s that it became like, geez, I think there's potential here and let's explore it. And I would say over the following 10 years, it became a definite destination, such that I knew that was where I wanted to go. And that, quite frankly, I'd be disappointed if I didn't get there. That I think I had the opportunity, I had something to offer, I had something to contribute, and I could make a difference in that role. So it is an objective that evolved over time as I was able to see myself in a certain frame.
And I'm just going to share this story. I use now ESL, full disclosure to everybody on the call. I am an ESL member, but the experience that I had with working with the individuals, the employees, the people, the teammates at ESL was just above and beyond. And before we got on the call, I was telling Faheem that even you could tell by the bathrooms. I kid you not, the cleanliness of a bathroom tells me a lot about the organization and the motivation and the satisfaction of how happy employees are to work there. That is why I made it a mission to get him on this show, because it all starts at the top. How do you, Faheem, get people to trust you and to buy into what you're building as a leader? And I think that probably ties into your greatest strength that you identified on how you could grow your impact, not only in the lives of your employees, but also externally of your walls in the community here in Rochester as well.
So I think relationships are very important and foundational. So I'll say a couple of questions you asked. I was able to observe that for some reason, people would be influenced by me. But by what I was thinking, I could observe that when I was introducing something, I had the podium and people would allow me the opportunity to talk to them about things. And as I examined that over time, I think certainly having knowledge is very important. That's sort of table stakes. But building that trust through, I think, genuine engagement with people, I think is really foundational for me. So it's not a tactic that, oh, geez, this is the way I will get something done, that I will build trust. No, it's more foundational to me is you have to get the right. To me, any kind of engagement starts with building trust. So I think that's very important, and seeking alignment, genuine alignment, which doesn't mean think my way. It means how do we kind of see the same thing and benefit from each other? Again, genuinely is important. I think I've become more aware over time that I didn't realize this, but I do actually have a real interest in people. And,
I was going to say that. I didn't want to disrupt you, but finance, typically you're not people, you're numbers people.
yeah, I was a real numbers person. Me and my multiple computers are very good friends. I think banking is a very social activity, and you can only do so much by yourself. And you quickly realize that you only know so much yourself. So as you start engaging, you see that you can do much more. And I think for me, it just naturally happens. But I will say, going back to my earlier comment, this sort of drive to be part of something involve people, establishing connections, because again, I was here with me and my wife by ourselves. So that really did come to the core of it. But I think how I observed some inputs for me were the realization when I talked about things, people had an interest in it. Then you do have to be responsible about that. You do want to use that platform in a responsible way and honor it. So the more that happened, the more I said, geez, I got to learn more. I have to become more knowledgeable. But then you also realize what works with one group of people doesn't necessarily work with others. You have to work with people as individuals. So I think over time that has, I have become even better at that. But I will say I have a lot of growing to do continually in that area. I think most people would say that.
I would agree with you.
We work with individuals, and that's the joy of it. We're not carbon copies of each other.
Yeah. Tyler, any last question? We want his best Muhammad Ali impression.
Well, I was just going to say, flow like a butterfly, sting like a bee. It was really nice meeting with you, Faheem. So I will sign off. Y'all have a great day. And it was awesome meeting you, Faheem. I'll catch up with y'all later.
Nice talking with you, Tyler. Have a great day.
See y'all.
Well, I'm chomping at the bit here to ask a lot of different questions because you've talked about a lot, and you can tell that you're very intentional with the type of leader that you are and the impact that you're looking to have, because the words that you use, like I said, participate as CEO, allow me to participate as CEO. Just that intention in and of itself, you see yourself in a leadership role, you understand the difference that you are making, but yet you still understand the importance of the social connection with these individuals. And that's, I think, the magic. I think that's really, you trust people, you encourage them to be themselves. And it sounds like you are open to hearing feedback from them. How do you create that safe space? Because some people want to surround themselves with yes people and never hear the bad news, the rainy day. But you seem to want to tune in to all good, bad, and indifferent. How do you do that?
I think a couple of things. Encourage feedback, but if you receive it and you don't do anything about it, people realize you're only going through the motions. We have very disciplined activities in our organization where we do have 360s, but those are very helpful. You get feedback, we plan around that, and we look for opportunities to grow, about how to relate to each other. Also cultivating direct feedback from people I work with, and it does get harder as your titles get bigger. It is harder for people to provide you feedback, but you have to work hard at overcoming your title in order to get the feedback. And as I said, you will get feedback if you do something with it. People will trust that it's worth taking perceived risk on that. The other thing I have to say, I have 2 daughters and my wife, and I am very used to getting a lot of feedback on my improvement opportunities. I have numerous improvement opportunities.
Yeah. And I think that's the same way I would say about my wife. I think they make me a better person. She makes me a way better person than I was, because multiple perspectives, right? But raw honesty, right? Feedback with no hidden agenda. And I think that's what you were kind of alluding to when you were talking about building trust, because now trust is the keyword. It's the buzzword. It's how you build a resilient workforce. PricewaterhouseCoopers and Ernst & Young changed their whole model on culture to trust, right? But what you said was so telling, is that if you're seeking trust and it's a game to you, it's that is manipulation. That is not trust building. That is manipulation at that point. And you are now connecting with the individual person, which is light years ahead of where most businesses are, frankly, if I had to really speak candidly. I think most still see just such a linear view to human capital, where it's like person, time, output, right? I don't care what they do outside of the working hours, doesn't matter to me, person, time, tools, output, right? But you have a more worldly and holistic view, and you can tell because your employees are some of the best recruiters at ESL, recruiting their friends and family to come and work for you. What are the things that you're focusing on as a CEO from a wellness and well-being perspective today that may have been different even 2 years ago?
So a couple of things. I'll just start by talking about the business and how it articulates what its strategy is. And strategy can get a lot of complexity to it, a lot of documents, but we try and translate that into a very simple, what we call a strategy map, which has 4 sections, if you will, 4 pillars in there. But the foundation on that strategy map, the foundation on which the entire business is built, is something called people, tools, and culture. And to us, if that is strong, the outcomes we create, the work design we create will be successful. So we very intentionally put people at the foundation of everything we do. They are our biggest asset. So how does that actually translate into activity? We are a highly designed organization. If we say something, it is supported by designed activities and processes. We have exceptional recruitment processes. We have processes to develop people, training opportunities. We wire in time in people's annual calendar to be able to take time to train and develop. That is an expectation. If you think of, if you were saying, I'm hiring a person and I want them to do a particular job, we intentionally carve part of the time that they are available in the year for development. And so this is a curriculum of courses available. We have been consistently ranked nationally as one of the best training and development organizations. And that's not accidental. It's a very deliberate action. It's an investment in our people and an investment in the business. And it's a demonstration to our people that we care, that we all will be stronger if we continually develop. We have mechanisms, very intentional mechanisms by which we recognize people. So this is not about pay for performance. This is about you did something great. Here is what you did that was wonderful. Here is what I'm publicly recognizing. Some things might be recognized with a gift card. Other things might be big honors, like 20 people about to annually get honored with what we call ESL honors. That's why I'm sort of dressed with the way I was. We were presenting one this morning. But we deliberately take actions to demonstrate to people that they are highly valued and reinforce that and build it as the foundation of the business. I think over the past 2 years, it was very important. We're very fortunate that that was wired in our culture, in our values. So I mentioned people, tools, and culture, but I translate culture into values. The values really became central to our decision making over the last 2 years, whether it related to our employees,
Wow.
whether it related to our membership or to our community. Those are the two stakeholders, the three primary stakeholders. Our business partners all are in the mix, and they're part of the community. So over the last 2 years, as we saw our employees faced with numerous challenges, we tried to come up with solutions that address those challenges in the flow, whether it was employees who were challenged with childcare, who were facing illnesses themselves, who had other transportation concerns, whatever, finding solutions for that on a dynamic basis. I think that became very central to everything we did. We have one of our values in particular, which is called caring about people. It became a litmus test on our actions. Is this demonstrating caring for people? So whether it was for us very early on, right when the pandemic started, announcing to our employees, do not worry about pay. If you can't come in, if we have to close our offices, we will continue to pay you. Wow. We had to relieve them of that burden right up front. Wow. And other actions that we took along the way, demonstrating caring about people. With the membership, asking the question about what do our members need? Much of our industry did a wonderful job about that. So it's not just ESL. The banking industry did a very good job of saying, we need to defer payments for people who can't make them, because it's such a disruption here. Yeah. We need to not charge certain fees. Yeah. We need to, one thing we did was we proactively reached out to our customers who weren't calling us if we noticed them getting unemployment checks and said, hey, it is not a bad thing for you to say, I don't have my usual cash flow, defer my payment. Mm-hmm. Let us know if you need help in that regard. We proactively reached out to them. Wow. I can't tell you how much our employees loved doing that. Yeah. Wow. They felt like they were really helping people out there. And our members were delighted by that. But it was very basic, caring action to take.
Yeah. That comes almost as like first nature to you. And I think it's humble beginnings, I think, teaches all a lot of things. I think your upbringing, you getting to see the haves and the have-nots is like what you mentioned, right? And just the awareness and the consciousness that you said is like, I wasn't poor, I wasn't that bad, but I wasn't at the top. I was maybe in the middle. But understanding, I think that brings more awareness to your role, that you have an understanding of what life stressors that anyone within the organization or any customer to the organization could be potentially going through. And you're really trying to remove those roadblocks as things that are in the way for them to achieve their success and their definition of success.
Yeah, and what enables that really is the team we have at the top, a team that is diverse, a team that is racially diverse, that is of different ages, different genders. There were so many issues that we were facing that you could very logically think about, but to have people in positions that they may have life experiences and that changes the dynamic of the conversation. So it's really enabling the team that brings their own perspectives is what, if there's any credit, it is creating an environment, but the actions are due to the great team that exists, that is very diverse, that trusts each other, that will have robust discussions. But because of the trust, they will say, maybe I don't see it, but I know how passionate about something you are. I will believe it. Yeah. I think the 20 people on our team did an amazing job of bringing themselves to the actions we had to take, that we needed to take that would be consistent with our values and our purpose.
Right.
Our purpose continues to be our journey for us. We codified that in our business in 2016 we started, but really codified it in 17. And we continue to examine our business through the lens of our purpose of helping our community thrive and prosper. We know there are parts of what we do that are contradictory to that. We are working through that. We are trying to understand those contradictions and trying to rationalize how to overcome them. At the end of the day, we do need to be a successful business to do good.
Yeah.
We have to be, as we say frequently, we have to be able to finance our dreams. And we do have to run a strong business.
Yes.
But we can't run a strong business while at the same time running it in a way that's contradictory to our purpose.
Yeah.
So there are things that we're examining about ourselves and continue to change. That we did a number of things over the last 4 or 5 years. We basically realized through some of our participation on the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative that part-time work really creates a burden for families. So we basically told our employees, anyone who wants to work full-time, we have a full-time job for them.
Wow.
Some people have a preference for part-time. We will accommodate that. Certainly, as I mentioned, during the pandemic, because of circumstances that people couldn't come in, we still paid them full wages. We went out to our membership. Annually, we look at our profits and distribute part of it back to the membership. And we knew that we would have a good year in 2020. And at the same time, we knew our members needed support.
Wow.
So we distributed an early dividend. That year, I believe it was $10 or $15 million that we distributed. We, like all banks, mobilized to really get money out to businesses to stabilize the economy. And we very much looked at what our community needed. And participating with United Way and others who formed that community crisis plan, we said, we will direct funding there. And we, in 2021, I believe, did about $24 million in philanthropy. And the year prior, I'm pretty sure we were approaching about 20 million. We've done over 40 million in philanthropy in the last few years.
That's amazing.
And we expect to continue that. It just got directed more towards the pandemic over the last few years. So, I mean, the purpose at the same time, we have to look at ourselves and examine and say, what do we need to change? But it takes some effort to understand why long-standing business practices don't make sense. And that is challenging, but something we're committed to doing. And we want to be very transparent and true to the purpose in reality. As I said, what we put down in our strategy, in our statements, are always backed by processes and actions.
That's amazing.
We do not make statements without a plan on how to make those statements come alive.
That's so, and it's so important because those are the building blocks to trust and to purpose, right? And your purpose, I think, yes, it will be ever changing, but I think what you shared about how excited your employees got to call somebody that they knew might have been on hard times. I think they know the purpose and what they're there for, and it's not banking. It's truly how can I help somebody that might be under stressful times and be there as a resource, as a friend, as a confidant, whatever it might be. And that showed up even when I was a customer going through the process of joining. And I say this in a nice way. Really, all things considered, finance is typically these types of feel-good things that we're talking about, right? And putting people before profits. And yes, the understanding is we need profits in order to fulfill our purpose. But sometimes things can be quantitative and some things can be qualitative, right? And some of the things that we're talking about show up not always on a balance sheet. how did you get yourself to the, I guess, the awareness, right, that people do, if I focus on our people, right, the right inputs, and you said people, tools, and culture, and I loved, and then adding the values. And those are the inputs, no matter what we do as a business, whether you are in banking or I could take you to a manufacturer, if that is your intention, always, you're always going to kind of be ahead. When did you come to that realization?
So I think George Eastman deserves a lot of credit here.
I love that.
In 1920, the whole reason the then Eastman Savings and Loan, which is what ESL stands for, was formed because George Eastman was growing Kodak significantly. He was bringing employees from all over the country into our community. And if in context, at that time, the financial services business was not quite as evolved. He wanted people coming from all these disparate communities to form a community in Rochester. And central to his idea was if they had mechanisms by which they could save and buy homes, they would get interested in building their neighborhoods, and their schools would connect with the community. So it was really an employee-driven activity that he started. And that's what we were born from. Yeah. It was employees helping each other succeed in life. So we really went back to our history to remember the core reason for our starting. Now, I do think it's important to realize that 1920s, our country was very different in its understanding and its appreciation and respect for all people. Yeah. Kodak and George Eastman was no different in terms of disparate impacts on people. Yeah. Certainly that largesse and generosity did not extend to all communities, which is something we've also understood. And that's the reality. It's not just something peculiar to ESL. It was the then Eastman Savings and Loan was part of a financial system that was discriminatory, and that has a lasting impact. Housing is a big source of wealth for people, generational wealth creation, and whole populations were excluded, not only not given the opportunity, they were deliberately excluded from participation. And that is something that we continue to look for ways to address. And I think the banking system is connecting with that and looking to address that. But for us, understanding employees at the base of it goes really back to why were we formed? Wow. We were formed for the benefit of the people doing business with us, who were the employees, and to build a community. And we've connected with that and really taken that, I believe, to a different level by saying our purpose. We are a financial institution, that is part of our mission, but our purpose is to help our community thrive and prosper. Yeah. So having a thriving and prosperous community for all in an equitable manner is very central to us. But that employee as the foundation, that traces its roots back to George Eastman. When I joined ESL in 1991, it was very clear to me, employees and members or customers, there was no difference. Wow. We were employees serving each other. That was very clear. And that's a unique aspect, that
super
enabling
unique.
aspect.
That's a connection, that's a bond that not many people can even, I mean, but you, like you said, it does take work. And that's what I think a lot of organizations are realizing right now, Faheem, is that it takes change they better get themselves comfortable with change. But ESL, it sounds like you have really gotten your arms around the change is inevitable, and we just want to be ahead of it, right? And I feel like you guys are pretty much always ahead or quickly to react. But that takes your courage and understanding that you trust the 20 people that report to you to do what you hired them to do. And sometimes out of desperation, we want to control, but you're very comfortable with not controlling at the same time.
Yeah, you realize very quickly there's only so much you can do. If you're going to really succeed, it's not what you do, but it's what you enable. And we're 930 some people in the organization. There's a lot of people, rowing the ship in that right direction, and connecting them, valuing them, listening to them. We're very deliberate about feedback from our employees. They are the best people to tell us what needs to change, what needs to be kept the same. So we do surveys. And as I said, you were talking about how I solicit feedback. The company solicits feedback. But part of why the feedback comes our way is we demonstrate that when we get feedback, we take action.
Exactly.
Certainly we have to prioritize things, but we take action. It's part of our process every year. Is we get feedback from a Great Place to Work survey and from an internal survey we run. And we have action planning as a result of those surveys. And we talk about or share the results with employees. This is what you told us. And this is what we did. So it creates a healthy loop. And we do that with our membership also. We actively solicit feedback from our membership. We always try and do the right thing, but amazingly, we don't always do the right thing.
But I think with you,
is there, but sometimes we don't see what we're doing until it's pointed out.
and that's what I think less, like I was going to say, it's less words, right? It's more action. You guys are really living it out. And I think that just came across, like I said, the bathrooms were clean. That means to me, like you care, right? And you know that your employer cares about you and you're going to go the extra mile for that customer, for that employee, for that coworker. And that culture, that environment is, you can feel in the branches that you probably might not be able to stop in at every day to make sure that that's the culture. And it's really hard to reproduce that and not get these subcultures within external parts and branches of such a bank. But you touched on kind of building those connections and being purposeful behind building those connections.
Right.
This is one of my favorite interviews. I will have to say this is, I have, no joke. It's like 7 or 8 pieces of paper of notes right here, Faheem. You're giving me a lot. And where I wanted to kind of end was, you touched on it, right? I think just building the awareness of our history, right? Pros and cons. I mean, you just calling out the George Eastman and how certain demographics were totally left out. Just being aware and conscious of that helps you to call the elephant out in the room and address it and make those changes. So my last question, what would you say is your greatest accomplishment to date as a person? And I know your family, so I know you're a family man. So I would say daughters and wife. If those couldn't be your answer, what would you say?
I find the biggest satisfaction out of seeing the success around me of the people. If I have a role that I've played in helping people succeed, I feel successful. I think someone said this, right? You can't, applauding is about hands clapping, and one hand can't really clap. You need both. There's something to that. I'm not really good with analogies sometimes, but again, going back to being part of something, seeing individuals, seeing the community having a small way impact on that is hugely satisfying. It means I'm doing justice to the opportunity I've been provided. And I really respect the platform I'm given. But there's tremendous joy in seeing us succeed as a group, whether it be in our professional careers, as a business, and the impact we have on our membership and communities and our employees. So that makes me very proud to be part of that. And it's not just a statement, be part of it. We succeed because we are highly collaborative. That is what makes us strong. It is not one person. It is getting the best of each other out together.
Yeah.
We are an amazing team. To me, success is seeing the success around me. And amazingly, that means I get success also.
It's amazing how you can find those win-win-win scenarios more often.
Absolutely.
And a couple of things in closing that you just said was you respect the position. You mentioned respecting of what you are cautious of what you said because of the belief factor. Everybody is going to believe and they get inspired, but you respect your role as a CEO. And I think that word just in and of itself is you are more emotionally aware, right? The fact that you understand that this is a role that you have an opportunity to drive and impact, or you could not and make it more profit driven. But how rewarding is that at the end of the day? How much more successful will you be making others, or are you using the backs of others to raise your own success? And I think you've built and established your leadership through really making those individual connections because you had no desire to really be the center of the stage until you realized, oh, I can have an impact and I can help others kind of raise others up with me. So Faheem, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with you today, and Tyler, I know, did as well. But I just want to say thank you so much for being that shining star in Rochester. You know, I think other leaders are going to hear this, and other leaders know you in the community, and now they're looking up to you to see how you run and organize your organization. And yes, it's the people that you surround yourself with, but as the saying goes, it all starts at the top. So
thank you for the opportunity. I am ever thankful for the life that I've been given by this community, and I'm just very proud to be part of it. So thank you. I really appreciate that we were able to do this, and thank you for the opportunity, Kevin, and appreciate Tyler's participation.
Thank you so much.